Hi, and welcome to an online version of the Junior Parent Night on the University Application and Research process held at ISB. This will be part one of the presentation that was held for parents. So the goal of this presentation is really to kick off the university process for 11th grade parents. The same information was also delivered to students during the school day. So before we begin kind of talking about the goals for tonight and all the details of the application process, our overarching goal for all students really is to assist them to understand the application process, but then also to help them be understood by the university admission committees who are going to be making decisions about their applications. So the goals of the presentation are to give you a framework regarding the application process. We aren't going to go into too many specific country requirements tonight. We're just talking overall about the process. We'll talk more about this given student family needs in the junior conference that's coming up. We don't want to overload you with too much information tonight. Really, our goal is to kind of kick off this process and to officially begin discussing options for students. In the overall application process, ultimately, the goal, I think, for any parent, student, or counselor is that the student gets admission to an institution of their choice. We also believe that students should find a university that matches their academic history and has a program that meets any of their future career goals. That could be a university that is academically challenging, one where they can experience success, and then one where they can also have a healthy, active balance life. We do believe that this is a long-term process that requires special collaboration between the student, the parents, and the school. As I mentioned, we've already given this presentation to students. Now we're sharing it with parents. And then in the coming weeks, we'll have individual meetings between the counselor, the student, and the parent to come together. So before we begin looking forward, let's look backward at what the students have already done. In grade 10, counselors led students in sophomore seminars where they did career exploration. Some of that was done in Naviance, where they took the Holland survey and identified careers that might be a good fit for their particular interests. They've also done some self-reflection on some of their strengths. This year in grade 11, in the first semester, we did some activities called College Match, where students are able to identify what it is they're looking for in a school and survey some of the attitudes and the goals that they've had in school so far. Students really are the experts at where they think they'll best thrive. They've already been in school for many years. They've been in high school for 2.5 semesters. They have a sense deep down what kind of classroom environment they need to thrive. And then finally, students have been given an assignment called the Junior Packet. Hopefully they've already shared that with you. That was given to them in November, and it contains a number of different activities, one of which has them starting to write their resume or CV. One of the activities has them writing a reflection on their time in high school. There's also a parent assignment called the Parent Perspectives. Hopefully they've shared that with you. That can be completed in paper form, or it can be completed in Naviance Family Connection. And finally, there are a few articles that we ask both students and parents to read. So if your 11th grader hasn't mentioned the junior packet, please ask them about this. Ultimately, I think everyone's goal is that the student finds the right fit for them. So you do that first by identifying what is the criteria that they have. So what are their grades? What are their standardized test scores? Where do they thrive in school? What are their interests? And then evaluate universities to see if the universities will highlight these strengths of the student. Comparing the student's academic profile to admitted students. So what are the IB scores of students who are admitted? What are the grades? What are the standardized test scores? How do they compare to the 11th grader? We also want students to research programs of study or majors, looking at admissions requirements which differ vastly within a country and amongst countries. Have some family conversations about cost, location, and also the type of university. We've asked at this point for all 11th graders to list any university that they're considering in Naviance. Really, right now, students are casting a wide net, thinking about all of the possibilities, and over the next few months, they're doing some general research on these universities to really figure out if they are the best fit. So we mentioned comparing the student's academic profile to the of admitted students. You can do that a few ways. First, let's say there's University X, and I want to find out what is the admitted student profile. So students who are admitted, how do they fare? I can go to the university website. That is the primary source of information for all students who have applied to that institution. Another primary source for information, which might give you an even clearer picture, is Naviance. So at Parent Night, we gave information or Naviance login codes to parents. If you do not have your access to Naviance, you can contact the counseling office and we can provide that for you. Naviance has a feature called scattergrams that allows you to look at a particular institution. So for this example, we're looking at McAllister College right here. McAllister is a great liberal arts institution in the States. You can see that over the last few years, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 students apply to McAllister. In the green boxes, 2 students have been accepted. 1 student was waitlisted and was never taken off waitlist. And then the 4th student was not accepted. This gives you information on what is the average GPA of students who have been accepted. This line represents that average, which is also published here, 3.88. Also, it tells you this scattergram, we're looking at SAT scores. You can also manipulate it to look at ACT. So here we're looking at SAT 2400 and then the GPA scattergram. So the overall average SAT score, students admitted to McAllister from ISB, is a 2080. And then that represents this line here. This fictitious student we're looking at is named Casey Panther. Casey's GPA is a 3.54 and Casey's SAT score is an 1822. So right now we would say that McAllister would be a reach. Okay, Casey would probably have a difficult time getting accepted to McAllister. And we'll talk more in a minute what this means, reach, target, and safety. The other thing is students who are IB diploma students. Maybe they're looking to universities that don't use holistic admissions, but instead use qualifications. So maybe that's Canada, the UK, Australia. You can also alter a scattergram to look at IB scores. So here we are looking at the University of Exeter, and we're looking at the average, grade point average, which UK universities aren't going to look at grade point average, but still that might be useful information just for you to have. And then we look at IB predicted grades. Okay, so most likely these students right here are outliers who have applied. They probably weren't full diploma students. These students were most likely IB diploma students. So if we're talking about Casey here, Casey's predicted IB results are a 35, which is quite strong. And if we look at the other students who have applied to Exeter, green means they've been accepted. Clearly, Casey probably has a good chance of admission here. The one thing that scattergrams do not show you is course-specific requirements. Okay, statistically, we know that biomedical engineering or computer science, highly competitive business programs are going to be more competitive in terms of admission. So that doesn't show you very specific course information. But the wonderful thing is that the UK, also Australia, are quite prescriptive. They will tell you what IB marks are needed for acceptance. The next thing we want to talk about are the different programs that we offer here at ISB to help support them through this process. First, university visitors. ISB in Bangkok, we are incredibly lucky to have a large volume of universities from all around the world visit our campus. We have universities from Canada, the US, the UK, various schools in Europe, and then also within Asia. How do you find out who's coming to ISB? The students find out every day. There's an email that's sent to them called the Daily Student Bulletin. Every Friday, parents are sent a high school e-news bulletin email, and in it there's a variety of information about high school. There is always an article from the counseling department, and parents can click on that link and it will show you who's coming the following week. But if you want to know long-term who's coming, you can always check into Naviance. As soon as we schedule an appointment or a visit, that will be listed in Naviance. Earlier, we asked that students can add all of the schools they're considering to their list in Naviance. If they do that, as soon as one of those universities schedules a visit to ISB, they'll get an automatic email. In junior year, so second semester now of junior year, we offer something called University Labs on Monday afternoons during Flex. This is an opportunity for students to come do research in room 203 or just have an available counselor to help them with any questions that they might have about the university research and application process. We also tend to offer some special presentations either by counselors or special visitors. Earlier this year, we offered one on UCAS, applying to UCAS, and specifically the personal statement, which is very distinct, quite different than what's required for U.S. institutions. We hold seminars, so this same presentation was already given to your son or daughter during a junior seminar. And then coming up, we have junior conferences, which we mentioned. That will be a meeting between you, the student, and the counselor. Our ISB philosophy and policy, again, we kind of talked about best fit. We believe that students will thrive at institutions that are a good fit for them academically, personally, but then also family discussions around finances. What can the school, what can the family afford? We encourage students to look beyond rankings. Rankings in the United States specifically are quite controversial in terms of how they are formed, and they don't always provide reliable data about the quality of instruction at an institution. We'll talk about this more in the junior conference, but ISB students can apply to a maximum of 10 universities. The UCAS and UK we do consider to be one institution. One of the reasons that we do that is because we tell universities that we have this limit, and therefore it means they consider all ISB students to be valid applicants. And they also know that if a student from ISB is applying to their institution, that they have really done their research and they are very interested in that institution. And finally, as you probably have heard from previous graduating classes, applications at ISB are submitted with the counselor. We let universities know that we have reviewed the application before it's been sent off to the institution. Therefore, they can trust that the authenticity of that application is trustworthy.